So we normally start these events talking about what's been trending on Twitter and talking about some big tweets from the last few days. But it won't escape anyone's attention. There's been a cycle of pretty bad news in the last few weeks. In fact, one of the things that you might have witnessed, these statesman figures have been really sort of propelled into the news agenda. The massive social media campaigns, people tweeting and using other social networks to drive old records back to the top of the charts, really with a point to prove. And no one was happier than me to see Ant and Dec go to #1 with Let's Get Ready to Rumble. Just a thrilling reminder that social media can mobilize people for good. I particularly enjoyed this tweet from Caitlin Moran. Caitlin Moran saying, "This is the Britain I dreamed of." I think about that. As Team GB are debating how they can go better than the 2012 Olympics medal score, swapping in Let's Get Ready to Rumble for the national anthem has got to be the next best thing, hasn't it? God Save the Queen, as an action point, we're all agreed on it. You know, the Queen's plenty saved, but how about our athletes getting ready to rumble on the track? No? Okay. Let me give you a few stats to kick us off. So I'm going to give you some context of the day. First thing you might know, we've got 10 million users for Twitter in the UK. And probably the context for the whole day today, the thing that's really going to help you understand how Twitter works, is understanding how it works as a mobile platform. So 80% of our users on Twitter in the UK use Twitter on their phones. Twitter is increasingly the way that we connect with the world right now. So our founder, Jack Dorsey, talks about Twitter being the world in your pocket. A great way to check in on what's happening right now. As a result of that, Twitter is powered by conversations. It's effectively propelled forwards by conversations. Here's one conversation that you might have witnessed in the last few weeks. So this was a quotation Martin Sorrell gave in an interview. Sir Martin Sorrell gave in an interview about 4 weeks ago. He said, "Twitter is a PR medium, not an advertising medium. And if we set out to answer one thing for you today, it's to help you decide where you sit on that." In fact, when I look at that, I tend to think both concepts actually feel like they're not of this time. They feel like they're maybe slightly outdated. Our take on it, for the record, is we think it's both. And hopefully we're going to prove to you plenty of reasons to believe that today. So when you're thinking about ads on Twitter, let me just show you some of this, because we're not going to do any sort of sales pitch later on. When we talk about ads on Twitter, effectively, we've created an ad format that was built by talking to our users. So the brands who'd been on Twitter from day one. And brands said to us when we asked them, they said, "Give us an ad, a native ad, that looks like the content, sits amongst the content, feels like the content." And that's exactly what we've done. In fact, the idea of native ads becomes sort of quite trendy right now. People are talking about native ads. In truth, while it's a new name, it's an old concept, right? So if you take the pages of Vogue, then in fact, all of the ads in Vogue are native. They feel like the content, they're welcomed like the content. In fact, they work in that environment uniquely because they feel native to Vogue. Same with TV. TV is the best native ad of all time. It sits amongst the content, it feels like the content, it's often more entertaining than the content. And that's exactly what we've done. We've created native ads that work exactly the same as the content. A beautiful quote probably illustrates that. This is from Campaign. "Having a tweet in your timeline, in your Twitter feed, does not feel intrusive, it feels informative. It just feels right." Good illustration of what we're trying to do. I'll show you the ad formats so we can proceed. But the ad formats really, on a standard Twitter page, we have 3 ad formats. We have promoted tweets. You don't need any followers to get value from Twitter. You don't need to build up a follower account. You can effectively use promoted tweets and use our targeting to drop them into people's timelines. These ads, we only charge for the ads that work here. We only charge if you engage with that ad, touching it in some way, retweeting it, clicking on it, following it, actions like that. In addition, we have promoted trends. If you want to understand promoted trends really are about driving conversations. Promoted trends are about mobilizing people to talk about what you want to talk about. And trends themselves are a great way for people to check in and see what's happening right now. Promoted trends give you that opportunity to shine a spotlight on what you're talking about. The final product we have is promoted accounts. And promoted accounts are a way that most advertisers tend to try Twitter with the first 2. And then they come back and they say, "I'm loving the experience of this. I'd love to have a series of my own followers that I can send messages to unfiltered into their timelines." And so promoted accounts work on a cost per engagement basis. Okay, so that's giving you the context. Let me go into the first block of content today. And probably the first thing we want to illustrate today is that we see increasing evidence that Twitter is the second screen to TV. Let me give you one example of that. So I mentioned Ant and Dec before. So cast your mind back. You might have seen this. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was a great episode of Saturday Night Takeaway, and Ant and Dec had just hosted some big pop bands of the last 10 years. They ended with the big payoff. So tweet volumes were already massively high as different pop artists performed on the stage. They then ended with their big payoff as they reunited themselves. And what I've done is I've overlaid tweets next to this. So it starts at a high volume, and let's see what happens.
Let's get ready to rumble! Let's get ready, let's get ready, let's get ready to rumble! We'll just wreck the mic, we'll just wreck the mic, we'll just wreck the mic!
Tell me Mo Farah wouldn't be mobilized by that. Right, so everything I'm about to talk about is in this book. If you want details on this, it's in this book. In fact, we've also tweeted it out just now. So all of the content you're seeing today, including the videos, including everything we're talking about, is being tweeted from our timeline. So feel free to maybe sit back and relax now, knowing that it's all there to discover tomorrow. So there's 2 principal experiences we think that interconnect TV and Twitter. TV and Twitter are amazingly symbiotic. And here's the 2 things we see. We see that Twitter works as a powerful discovery device, but also as an incredible engagement tool. And both of them really strongly help the broadcasters, but in addition, they massively present opportunities for brands. Let me give you some stats that will maybe help you understand why this is such a big phenomenon right now. Firstly, 60% of our users have tweeted while they're watching TV. It's a big preoccupation. People love doing things on the second screen while they're watching television. 40% of all tweets in the evening, according to Second Sync, great partners of ours who are here today, 40% of all tweets in the evening are related to TV. We tend to tweet about the things that are happening in the real world. Things that happen in the real world happen on Twitter. And the final one is 90% of all public mentions can be found on Twitter. So consequently, if you are looking for a place to explore and link these things, it's an incredibly powerful platform. Here's why people do it. So people do it, firstly, to enhance their enjoyment of what they're seeing, but they also do it to feel like they're part of something. So entertainment and participation. And here's one example of that. There was a program on Channel 4 a couple of weeks ago, and it was Hugh's Fish Fight. And it was an investigation into how factory farming was taking place for prawns and for seafood. The challenge was, for the broadcasters, that none of the supermarkets wanted to talk to them. So what did they do? They mobilized their audience using Twitter. Let's show you.
Now, I'm hoping that if you fish fighters out there get involved too, we might actually get some answers on this issue.
You can bet representatives of these supermarkets are watching this show right now, waiting to see what we're going to say about them. Well, if they won't talk to me, maybe they'll talk to you. So let's get tweeting. What are your prawns eating? At #fishfight. You can send that to @UKTesco, @Morrison's News, and @Cooperative Food. Let's get Fish Fight trending during this commercial break.
Mobilizing an audience to participate. So let me show you some of the patterns that we see, and all of these are in the book. So they illustrate the patterns that we see connecting Twitter and TV. Firstly, how drama works. Drama's an escape. People dwell in drama. In fact, the patterns we see on drama is that people tend not to tweet while the show's on. If you see, this is Broadchurch here, the ITV drama, and it's actually bookended. We see this all the time, whether it's Homeland, whatever show we look at, we tend to find people tweet in anticipation of the show, and then at the denouement of the episode. They want to talk about what happened, but they don't punctuate it while they're watching. Contrast that to something like an ongoing drama like Coronation Street. People actually have always treated these as social TV. The oldest form of social TV was chatting to your mum and your brother or whatever on the sofa. Okay, so all we've done is really replace that for a lot of people. We've made those shows that were always social. We've just created a platform for them to be social on Twitter. So this peak here during Coronation Street was when the Rovers' return burnt down. Factual shows tend to be more of a live debate. They tend to be a discussion. This is the Hillsborough Remembered program. And what you find here is people want to discuss. Anyone who has rediscovered Question Time or rediscovered programs like Panorama will recognize these. People love commentating, love feeling like they're part of a debate, being stimulated while they're watching the show. The one we're really fascinated by is films, because it gives you a sense that programs have almost a DNA profile on Twitter. So this is 17 again by Zac Efron, shown on a different channel, a different time, a different day. But it's almost identical. In fact, we include another example of Taken with Liam Neeson in the book. It's so identical, you can almost recognize the show by the pattern of tweeting. Now that plays for TV programs, but let's have a look at the impact of that on advertising. So firstly, let's take 4 different scenarios. First one, it's a brilliant ad linking to Made in Chelsea for Freeview. So Freeview Plus created an ad that references the content. It has no hashtag in it, but like every ad has a presence on Twitter. So whether you intend it or not, people are talking about your content on the platform. Here's one illustration. These are the mentions of that Freeview ad. It quickly grows, 1,000 mentions with no hashtag, quickly rises to reaching a potential audience of about 1 million users. The simple act of putting a hashtag on a commercial has a massive difference. So that had 1,000. This ad for Cloud Atlas, the film Cloud Atlas, it's fair to say Cloud Atlas isn't the best film in the world. It's fair to say that the ad for Cloud Atlas wasn't the best. The ad wasn't the best ad for Cloud Atlas, but they put a hashtag on it. And it got 4 times the volume of tweets. So let's have a look at a visualization. Who are the people tweeting? Here's what happened. Firstly, you get what you expect. The people tweeting on the hashtag Cloud Atlas, a lot of them were film fans. But in fact, by adding the hashtag, it expanded out to a broader audience. And what you tended to find that 4,000 people tweeted on it, but it wasn't just film fanatics, it was a broader, more casual audience. In fact, the bridge between those 2 communities was the cinemas themselves. By adding a hashtag, even on a lower quality ad, it was mobilizing more action. Let me show you another ad. So this is one of the first illustrations. This is a campaign for Argos. And what they did, Argos, is they effectively used a hashtag as a call to action. First time we've seen it, actually. So they used a hashtag on the screen saying, "Win Dad's camera." And what they did is that anytime you clicked on it, because they promoted into that hashtag, anytime anyone clicked on that, they would click and they would go through and see the competition. So a great way to effectively use your audience to distribute a campaign for you, a competition. Last count, that's had about 12,000 mentions. Probably the final one, and the poster boy for social media integration right now, is the 3 Dance Pony Dance campaign. And that was created by Mindshare. Beautiful piece of work. Everyone's probably well familiar with it. Not only did it integrate a hashtag as a call to action, but it also encouraged people to participate using that hashtag. So here's a piece of their user-generated content that effectively became their ad.
That I fail to love you. Just taking it out tonight. Am I supposed to leave you now? When you're looking like that, I can't believe what I just gave away. Now I can't take it back. Am I supposed to leave you now? When you're looking like that.
Great ads are always great ads, right? So here's a tweet from Claire Balding, just celebrating great commercial work. Here's a tweet from Fleetwood Mac talking about the first execution of that ad. Great ads have always stimulated conversation. Twitter now allows you to capture that. That campaign has generated 200,000 tweets. So clearly, it's a supreme piece of creativity, but it's generated an earned reach, an opportunity to see for that campaign of 23 million. Let's have a look at that. Let's break that down. Well, firstly, let's have a look. These are the TV impacts for that campaign. So really spiked initially at the start. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay Twitter mentions. And actually what you can see, if you overlay it, firstly, they're strongly symbiotic. What happens in the real world happens on Twitter. The biggest divergence you can see there is around the promoted trend. At a fraction of the price, we were able to stimulate additional conversations about that campaign by dropping that promoted trend in there. So it's back to what I said before, promoted trends can drive conversations. The other thing that you might want to think about when you're thinking about linking your TV campaign and a Twitter campaign is social spots. The notion that those programming formats have got different behaviours associated with them. Coronation Street, here's one example, reaches 8 million people. First 10 minutes of a recent episode generated about 2,500 tweets. But compare that to something like Chatty Man with Alan Carr. A quarter of the audience, but the same volume of tweets. It's a more social show. If you want your message to travel further, thinking about social shows is a really key way to do it. So let's look at all of those numbers, all of those different formats. So the first format, that first bar, is that free view ad. No hashtag, no Twitter presence, but people are already talking about it. Adding the hashtag gets you to stage 1. It lifts you up a little. Next stage is adding the promoted products. That takes you to the next level, the likes of Argos, just getting your message in front of more people when they're talking about things. And the final one is the deeper integration, using what 3 did, the Mindshare team did for Dance Pony Dance, effectively driving far more engagement by treating the two as part of the same campaign. So I've talked about those two things. In fact, you might have seen some extraordinary work from Nielsen about a month ago that Nielsen published for mid-series shows in the US. They looked at how audiences responded to what they saw on Twitter. For mid-series shows, Nielsen reported that for young audiences, a 4% increase in the volume of tweets about a show led to a 1% increase in the ratings. So effectively, you can drive ratings, and we've observed that ourselves. Again, that's in the book. You can drive ratings with volumes of tweets. So we've put the key points, takeaways on the wall today, but what are the key points of this part? Well, firstly, when you're thinking about linking Twitter and TV, think about your social call to action. It's free. It's a big way to enhance what you're doing. If you want to mobilize an audience, you need to help them hang around a conversation. I saw a discussion about hashtags and the use of hashtags. And the discussion, it was a tweet. It said, Twitter's a chat room, hashtags are channels. And effectively, by putting a hashtag on your ad, you're creating a channel of discussion around your content. Next, think about those social spot selections. Think about what the shows that are going to really work for your brand are. And the final one, the promoted product suite that we have, can help you amplify and extend the campaigns you've got.